Good afternoon. Oh yeah, is it? I thought what happens at 11:30? That's that afternoon. Oh my gosh, we have a troublemaker in the front row. I already know that already. Okay, all right. Good to see you all. My name's James Blessman. I'm here with Cures and Center for. How many people know what Cures is? You have a sense of what Cures is? They have no idea. See, they have no idea. Okay. Center for Urban Responses to Environmental Stressors. So think about it this way. If I were to cut your arm, I wouldn't, especially you, I wouldn't do that to you. She would hurt me. Your body would automatically send in platelets to stop the bleeding. It'll send in white cells, prevent infection. It'll send in fibroblasts to scar it down. You would not have to make one decision about that at all, right? There's a wisdom about your body that knows how to get itself back on track, okay? However, if you were to create, I would say, an error of omission. So your body says, hey, we need some vitamin C down here. And you go, well, we don't have any. Well, that's what I'm going to need. Well, I don't know what to tell you. Just make it work. Or I call it error of omission. Your body's looking for something it doesn't have. Or error of commission, where you're doing something. Let's say you're spreading that wound apart. It's an error of commission. As long as you give the body what it needs and don't give it what it doesn't need, your body will find its way back. So at Cures, we're kind of more interested in the errors of commission, kind of those environmental issues that are stressors that maybe our bodies don't necessarily like, that helps us to get back on track. Is that kind of making a little bit of sense?
Yes.
And so, yeah, okay, so that's kind of, I appreciate that quick feedback. So that's kind of why we're here and what we do. My role, I'm an occupational health physician, occupational environmental medicine physician. So my job is to make sure your job doesn't make you sick. In general, I had to come up with that for my mother because she was like, what do you do? You know, all that money I didn't pay. What are you actually doing? So that's, you know, so she gets that part. So my job is to try and make sure that your job doesn't make you sick. And I kind of look at things from the perspective of mental fitness, nutritional fitness, physical fitness, and social fitness. And social fitness is actually why I wear the hat, because I think that that's very important. How we relate to each other has the greatest impact on how we ultimately live, because we're kind of in this fishbowl. And so what I do doesn't just impact me, it actually impacts you. And I think that that's a little bit about what today's discussion is about, is on the bigger issue of climate change, which I think is very important, which a couple years ago people were saying didn't even exist. But now it's kind of hard for them to say that this is something that we can really ignore. So what we're going to do is we have two presenters. They're going to go about 15, 20 minutes apiece. We'll have a little break in the center. And then at the end of that, we're going to have some opportunity for some questions and answers or for some more discussion. We will allow for a couple questions after, but you know, if we kind of cut them off, we're just trying to make sure that we get to the end and we get you out of here. Is that okay? And so any one question to start? So actually, first of all, is everyone here? Raise your hand if you are. Okay, wait. Now see, that was my audience participation check. I only got about a third of people who raised their hand. They don't even know that they're here. So you people over here, you guys are here. All right? So let's try this one more time. How many people are here today? Dude, really? Okay. We won't do that again. All right. I'm glad for those who are here that you are here and you know that you are here. That's good. Okay, so from Bucknell University, am I saying that correctly? Yeah. Okay, good. We have Mr. Mick Smyer. Am I saying that right? Which we just met. I didn't know him before today, but I hear he's like really phenomenal. I mean, this talk is going to be so incredible. He's probably just going to glide over here to the microphone. That's how incredible. No, I don't mean to put that kind of pressure on, so you know. But if we would kind of put our hands together and welcome him here, he's going to talk to us a little bit about climate change. Thank you so much. Sorry.
No pressure.
No pressure. Yeah, no pressure. No pressure.
Well, as I listened to that presentation and that introduction, I was reminded of a comment by Lyndon Johnson, and the people in this audience can remember Lyndon Johnson, right? He was being introduced, and he said, I wish my parents were here. My dad would have appreciated that, and my mom would have believed it. But seriously, it's a real pleasure to be with you today. I was supposed to give this talk, I think, back in March, and I got snowed out. Yeah. So I'm here to tell you I love this Detroit weather. It's great. Thank you for having me back. And I especially want to thank Cures and the Healthy Black Elders Center for having me here. Has this ever happened to you? You have a great idea, a simple idea, and other people don't get it? They just don't see it? Yeah. And that happened to me. I had this idea that I call Graying Green, Climate Action for an Aging World. Here's how it goes. It's real simple. There are these two global patterns going on. The world's population's getting older, Detroit's getting older, and climate change is happening. So I thought it's time to connect those two patterns. And you know what happened? I gave this idea to a talk one time at Yale, a room kind of like this, and I was about this far away from a prominent scientist. And you know what he said? He had a one-word answer after my talk. That word was, huh. And I thought, whoa, this is not going well. And then I realized, is science talk for, that's not crazy, I just never thought about it. And that's the point. Climate scientists and climate communicators just don't think about us, about older people. And when they do, what they think about is older people as victims of climate change, but not potential leaders of climate action. But I think there's much more to the story than just victimhood. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. And after I'd heard from about 12 different people all over the world, all these scientists, it made me think about a YouTube video. Has anybody ever seen the YouTube video, Old People Don't Care About Climate Change? Oh, you can Google it. It's really out there. It's called Old People Don't Care About Climate Change. And there are people like, comics like Ed Asner, Cloris Leachman, Cobbs, other people. And the premise is they start by saying, climate change? I don't have to worry about climate change. That's an after I die problem. Yeah. When I first saw this, I got really mad. And I said to my kids, have you seen this video? And they said, Dad, it's satire. It's humor. I said, oh, yeah, okay. And the reason it works, the reason satire works, is because it works against the underlying truth, which is we do care about climate change, right? Yes. Who here cares about climate change and its effects? All right, that's more than said they were here, James. Right, they're waking up. And that's good, because what you just showed is what the data from surveys show repeatedly, that people our age and older care as much about climate change as younger generations. For example, the most recent data from Yale shows that only about 7% of people of any age deny that climate change is happening. Now, a lot of that 7% I think live on Capitol Hill, but that's a whole separate issue. But at any rate, it is the case that we care about climate change. And that got me to thinking about, well, why don't we act on it? And I realized it's because we've developed a bad habit. It's not climate denial. It's what I call the climate avoidance habit. See if this sounds familiar to you. It goes something like this. Climate change, whoa, that's such a big problem. What can one person do about it? It makes me too nervous and anxious. I'm just not going to think or talk about that. Anybody ever have that feeling? Yeah. And that's what happens for a lot of people. For example, right here in Wayne County, 70% of people know that climate change is happening. Over half say it's human caused. but only about a third talk even occasionally with their family members and friends about climate change. So that's not climate denial, that's climate avoidance. Now, I'm a psychologist by training, I'll admit it. And so psychologists are supposed to know something about habits and breaking habits and getting good habits to form. So I got to thinking, how can I break that habit of climate avoidance? And what I've come up with is the following. Here's the deal. I think we're each on a climate journey. And we feel better when we know where we are on our journey and what the next step is for us. For example, my journey started in 2005. Why in 2005? Well, I'm going to tell you one other fact about me and see if you can figure out why 2005 was important. I was born and raised in New Orleans. What happened in 2005? Katrina, right. Now, I wasn't living in New Orleans at the time, but if you were born and raised there and you saw your hometown 80% flooded, it was a kick to the gut. It felt terrible. Now, I was lucky. I could do something about it. I went down with students from Bucknell University, and we did Katrina rebuilds for 10 years after the storm. 10 years after the storm, people were still trying to get back into their homes. But I was lucky. But that's when I sort of woke up to extreme weather and climate change and said, you know, something's going on. This isn't how it used to be when I grew up with other hurricanes. But my climate journey accelerated about 2.5 years ago. Now, Carrie told me I couldn't use slides, so that's a good thing, because if I had slides, I would show you pictures of the best-looking grandchildren in the world. Yeah, I know, you've got those, right? But I have twin grandsons, Bailey and Gus, and they were born 2.5 years ago. Now, what does that have to do? And then I have to mention their cousin, Teddy, who was born 7 months ago, and he is a good-looking little fella. But as we say in our family, he's a healthy baby. You know what that means? He's got these cheeks like this, you know. But, so what do my grandsons have to do with climate change? Well, it's really easy for me. I can now picture what they're going to be like when they're my age, when they're 67, 68. I can maybe picture what their kids are going to look like, but that's a scary project. But I can picture them as older people and what the world will be like for them. And that worries me. So that's been my climate journey. But enough about me. Let's talk about you. You have in front of you a blank piece of paper in that pile of paper, right? Everybody got a blank piece of paper? Okay, I want you to take out that blank piece of paper, and I'm going to make 4 requests of you. And I'd like you to take a pen or a pencil and write down your answer and sketch your answer to the following 4 requests. You ready? Okay. First, picture a place, any place in the world that has special meaning to you. Picture a place, any place in the world that has special meaning to you, that you're attached to. For example, and I'm going to lower the bar for sketching here. I wrote down NOLA for New Orleans, Louisiana, and I sketched the symbol of a hurricane, because when I think of my hometown, I always think of Katrina. So that's my sketch. Here, I'll show you. You can see how bad my sketch is. I'm lowering the bar. So picture a place, any place in the world that has special meaning to you, that you're attached to. Okay? Now the second question. Picture that place affected by extreme weather or climate change. Picture that place affected by extreme weather or climate change, and then write down and sketch what that would look like for you. For example, I wrote down floods, and then here's my picture of a house with rising water. It's pretty bad, I know, but I'm lowering the bar for everybody here. Floods and a house with water. So picture that place affected by extreme weather or climate change. Okay? Third question. Picture what you'd like that place to look like in 40 to 50 years. Not what you think it'll look like, but your aspiration for it. What do you hope it looks like in 40 to 50 years? And again, write down a word or phrase and sketch something that reminds you of what you'd like it to look like in 40 to 50 years. Picture what you'd like it to look like in 40 to 50 years. And sketch what you'd like it to look like. And the fourth and last request is picture something you can do now to work towards that vision that you have for 40 to 50 years from now. Picture something you can do now to work towards that vision you have in 40 to 50 years. And then write down a word and sketch something that reminds you of what you could do. Okay, so let me ask you, say that again? Yeah, we'll come to that in just a second. Yeah, that's a good answer. So let me just go back to the first question. How many people had a place that they care about? Okay. Could we hear some of those places? Just church? Hello?
The north end where I grew up on Cameron between King and Alfred in Detroit.
Okay, the north end in Detroit where you grew up? The house you were born and raised in, yep. East Jefferson. Okay, now you all know where these places are. I'm new to Detroit. I could not have predicted all these places, but I could have predicted everybody has a place they care about. I've done this with hundreds of people all over the country, north, south, east, and west. Everybody's got a place they care about except one guy. That one guy said, I don't care about any place. And he said, I only care about where my kids are. I said, where are your kids? He said, San Francisco and Washington. I said, you got two places. So we all have a place we care about. How many people know what the threat is, extreme weather or climate change, what it would look like for that place? Yeah?
It's been raised.
Right.
There's nothing there now.
It's been raised.
A lot of blight.
Yeah, it's a lot of blight.
Yeah.
Right, right. Well, what about what you'd like it to look like in 40 to 50 years? Yeah. Yeah.
I would like to try to get the house back and keep it in the Johnson family.
Like to get the house back and keep it in the family. You know, when I talk to older audiences, a lot of times what people say they'd like it to look like is either what it looks like now or what it used to look like 10 or 20 years ago. And the reason for that is we're living climate memory. I can tell you what Bayou St. John looked like 40 or 50 years ago. Different from what it looks like today. And you can tell me what Detroit looked like 40 or 50 years ago. Different from what it looks like today. But how about that last question, what you can do now to work towards your vision? How many people were kind of stumped by that question? Some. Depending upon the audience, sometimes when I ask that question, somewhere between 50 and 80% of people are stumped by that question. Now, I'm a psychologist, so if I just left you anxious, that's good for business, but not good for climate action. And that's where the next step comes in. I actually have developed a card game. Not going to play it today because we don't have time, but it's called Your Climate Journey. I have a set of 30 cards here, and what I ask people to do is sort them into 3 categories. Things I already do, things I could do, and no way, things I cannot or will not do. Sounds pretty easy, and it is. What is fun about it is people get into the game pretty quickly. Whoop, your pizza is ready, guy. What happens is people really get into it, and they start talking to each other. And the hardest part of running the workshop is getting people to stop talking, which I think is great because it gets people engaged. I've done this workshop all over the country, and what I find is that people, at the end of the workshop, we set a goal. Each person sets a goal of, as an 81-year-old woman said to me, you want to move one thing from could do to will do. She understood immediately. She then said, I'm not going to do it. But she went on and did it. And that's what happens. Somewhere between 60 and 80% of people after the workshop actually carry through on their next step on their climate journey, and they feel much better about it. But even more importantly is when I do this work with groups like retirement communities, senior centers, or churches, what I find is those groups then go on and take action themselves. For example, I worked in a retirement community in Massachusetts, and I followed up with the individuals. Did you do what you said you were going to do? And one woman wrote back to me and said, oh, I did that. But not only that, we went and talked to the administration of our retirement community, and now we compost all the food waste from our retirement community, saving all of that and using that for compost, and we're shrinking our carbon footprint. I did another workshop out in Fort Collins, Colorado. And what I didn't know was I had employees of the city of Fort Collins in that workshop. So I followed up with them, and these were the sustainability office of that city. And I followed up with them a few months later to see if they had carried out the one thing they said they were going to do. And the woman said to me, not only that, but we took your cards back. We liked them so much, we made our own card deck. And so now every employee in the city of Fort Collins has an environmental card deck at their new employee orientation. And they're asked to think, what can I do to make Fort Collins more sustainable? Regardless of their job, whether they're working in police or tax collectors, whatever it is, what can I do to make Fort Collins, what am I already doing, what could I do, and what's on my no-way pile? In other words, they're making Fort Collins more sustainable through their city government using my cards. Now, it used to be I'd say, wait, you're using my cards, you can't do that. No, that's success, right? They took my idea and adapted it. And that's the point. We each can do something to move towards that vision we have for our own hometown, for our own neighborhood, and for Detroit. So let me end with this. Let me ask you a simple question. How do you want to be remembered? What do you want your legacy to be? It turns out asking that question helps us think about and move towards action on climate issues. Regardless of what age you are, you don't have to be our age. Any age, just asking that question motivates people to think and act around climate issues. So I have 3 simple requests for you. One is, I'd like you to break the climate avoidance habit today by talking to somebody in your circle of influence and telling them about this workshop. Hey, do you know what I did today? I heard some more facts about climate change. It's real, it's happening, and it's affecting Detroit and the people I care about. So that's my first request. Talk to somebody in your circle of influence, because you all have circles of influence. My second request is to share your stories during our chat after the second talk. Tell me about the kind of things you're doing in your neighborhood and in your circles of influence, because I'm collecting those kinds of stories so I can tell other folks what's going on here in Detroit. And my third request is, if you're interested in my workshop and in the cards, oh, by the way, I also have a kids version, and I only brought 2 copies of these because I realized if I bring more copies of the kids deck, you know what happens to them? People walk off with them. You know why? They like to do the kids version with their grandkids. So I trust you all, but I only have 1 copy of the kids deck. Anyway, the kids deck is great for working with Sunday school classes or with families around what you already do, what you could do, or what's on your no-way pile. Anyway, my third request is, if you're at all interested in having me work with one of the groups that you're involved with, whether it's a church or a senior center, social club, please give me your name, and I'll be glad to get back in touch with you. I teach people how to do this workshop. It's real easy. People really like it. And not only do they have fun, but they also have an impact on their local environment and on their circles of influence. So there you have it. Next time somebody asks you about the link between climate change and aging, I hope you won't say, huh? you'll know that there's more than a one-word answer. Thanks for your time today. I appreciate it. The question, the question was, where can you get kids' deck of cards? See me afterwards, and I'll make them available to you because I'd like to talk to you about it. But they're a lot of fun. Yeah.
Do you go to schools?
We go to schools.
Oh,
Do you go to the schools?
yeah. Good question. Do I go to the schools? Yes, we've been working with schools, and in fact, I have a group of teachers, one retired first grade teacher, and then a couple of current teachers who are working with me, and we've developed kind of a package for teachers. So that, because schools are teaching a lot about climate change, but they love these tools as a way to engage the kids. And the kids love it. One last question, James, and then we'll, okay.
Have you connected with any of the United Methodist churches in the city of Detroit yet?
I have the question, have I connected with any of the United Methodist churches in the city of Detroit? The answer is no, and I'm here today to try to make those kind of connections. So I'd love to talk to you afterwards.
I want to take one more.
Oh, okay.
Great. Yeah, don't look around. Yeah, you.
Okay, I wanted to know because my daughter teaches in Atlanta,
Uh-huh.
and I want her school to have your message.
Sounds good. Well, we'll talk after the break, okay?
All right,